Okay, welcome to our discussion for non-protein nitrogen compounds for CC1 laboratory. We have here a few learning objectives, that is to review the importance of the different NPNs, and during our experiment you already performed proper patient preparation and specimen collection. Now this time we are going to enumerate different analytical methods used and to suggest possible clinical conditions associated with test results, given that we already have results of urea, uric acid, creatinine, ammonia, and then the supporting clinical history. Now the term non-protein nitrogen, okay, the term NPN, was first originated in the early days of clinical chemistry analysis. So that time, analytic methodologies required the removal of protein from a specimen before mag-analyze. Okay? Hence the term NPN, or the protein-free filtrate. Now that protein-free filtrate will be quantified using the spectrophotometer, particularly ang quantitation is by converting nitrogen to become ammonia. Okay, so we convert nitrogen for it to become ammonia, and then that is followed by the addition of this Nestler's reagent, which would then produce a positive yellow color. So this is your Nestler's reagent. The other name of Nestler's reagent is this one. This is the chemical formula. Okay. That is potassium tetraiodomercurate. This is G. Yeah. Potassium tetraiodomercurate 2. Alright. So this is a tabulated format of the clinically significant non-protein nitrogen compounds. We have here urea as the one highest in concentration, both in plasma and in urine. So it's around 45 to 50% sa plasma, around 86% in urine. And then take note yung difference ng order ng concentration sa plasma versus urine. Particularly, walang amino acids sa urine or creatine. Okay, and then medyo mataas yung percentage ni ammonia excreted in urine compared to blood. Okay, and you will know why in the following slides. Ayan. So ammonia, as the first NPN that we are going to discuss, is normally produced because of the deamination of amino acids during protein metabolism. So ammonia, free ammonia in the blood, is extremely toxic to your human cells. So hindi po normal na mataas yung ammonia levels natin in the blood. So because it is extremely toxic to us, what our body does is we convert ammonia to become urea through the liver. So this urea cycle, yan, this is the normal amino acid structure. This one, normal amino acid structure muna. And then this is the urea cycle. So in this cycle, we can see, starting from here, that ammonia will go through various steps, okay, for it to become converted to urea. And then that urea, which is already a non-toxic form, is ready to be excreted by your kidneys through urine. Okay, so this urea cycle is to be discussed, or should have been discussed further in your lecture. Basta important to note, ammonia is toxic and only excreted in its non-toxic form, urea, through the kidneys. Alright, so here we have a few clinical applications of this analyte. So it is usually associated with three main conditions. The first of which is hepatic failure or severe liver disease. So this is the most common cause of disturbed ammonia metabolism, seeing as liver is the one who converts, it converts ammonia to be its non-toxic form. So of course, any problem with your liver would mean hindi niya nagagawa yung normal function niya. So checking for ammonia levels can help determine the prognosis of a person with liver disease. So ito from a healthy liver, this is how a liver with cirrhosis looks like. So any impairment of the liver function would mean ammonia is not removed properly. And if it's not removed properly, it will increase its level in the blood, meaning it would be neurotoxic to you, okay, which could end up or could be associated with encephalopathy. And these conditions can cause you brain dysfunction. Neurotoxicity as well as encephalopathy can appear as confusion, memory loss, personality change, or in its most severe form, even coma. Okay? Another condition that can be associated with ammonia is Reye's syndrome. So in Reye's syndrome, it's another metabolic disease of the liver. So we see here may hepatomegaly yung patient, and it's mostly common in children. So this fatal disease occurring in children is preceded by a viral infection. So you are first infected by a viral disease, and then once administered si aspirin, it can turn to Reye's syndrome, especially sa mga bata. So here you would see na yung patient dito, nagkaroon siya ng VCV infection or varicella zoster infection, and then binigyan siya ni aspirin, nagdevelop tuloy ng encephalopathy plus hepatomegaly. So it's a very serious case. Actually, it can even lead to death in children. So checking for the ammonia concentration here can tell us the severity of the disease and the possible prognosis. So if we see after checking yung ammonia levels niya ang taas, high ammonia levels, it might mean there would be a bad prognosis. Okay? It doesn't look good kung mataas yung ammonia levels. Here, the last disease associated with ammonia is inherited deficiency of urea cycle enzyme. So, babalikan natin si urea cycle kanina. So, when we try to diagnose this particular condition, we have to monitor and check ammonia levels. So, looking at this photo, ayan, may na-highlight na I think 5 enzymes here. So, if these 5 enzymes are lacking, kulang sila, it would mean ammonia is once again not converted to become urea and hindi siya ma-excrete properly in urine. So we want to consider this particular disease if we observe in the neonate, so bata na naman, if merong unexplained nausea, vomiting, or neurological deterioration associated with the feeding. Okay? Now, how can we prepare samples for ammonia analysis? Number 1, heparin and EDTA anticoagulants are recommended, so it's suitable. So careful specimen handling here is important, meaning when you collect venous blood, it has to be placed on wet ice immediately. Okay, so with that, centrifugation is recommended at ref temp 0 to 4 degrees Celsius within 20 minutes of collection, and the plasma immediately separated na naman. Bakit kaya? Because whole blood ammonia will increase its concentration rapidly after collection. So madaling tumaas si ammonia levels after collection, particularly dahil meron pa rin nangyayaring in vitro amino acid deamination. So, balik lang natin kanina, di ba ammonia is produced through the deamination of amino acids, okay, during protein metabolism. And the deamination process pala can even continue, it can continue even after mong mag-collect ng blood. So, to prevent that, kailangan mabilis, wet ice, tapos separate plasma after centrifugation. Okay? Other preparations for the patient should be as follows. Avoid po cigarette smoking because it is a significant source of ammonia contamination. So we recommend that patients do not smoke for several hours before a good specimen is collected. Some substances also influence in vivo, ammonia concentration. So when you intake the following: ammonium salts, asparaginase, barbiturates, diuretics, ethanol, hyperalimentation, and narcotic analgesics, falls increased po si ammonia levels. While the following nakaka-decrease naman si diphenhydramine, Lactobacillus acidophilus, lactulose, levodopa, and several antibiotics. Fun fact, Lactobacillus acidophilus is found in your probiotics. Okay, so it can unnaturally decrease ammonia in high concentrations. Okay, so here are the analytical methods that we can use to measure ammonia. We have chemical methods here, namely Kjeldahl, the digestion method, two methods to measure ammonia. We have Nesslerization and Berthelot reaction. For the enzymatic method, we have using glutamate dehydrogenase. Okay? Ayan. So starting with Kjeldahl, you already kind of know this. Ano nga bang previous discussion natin na mention si Kjeldahl, if you can remember? Okay, so I hope you're trying to recall it right now. Remember, with Kjeldahl, the nitrogen ion of our sample is converted to become ammonia. Medyo siya yung diba, mahabang process. There is digestion, may heat, may sulfuric acid, several catalysts, no? This particular figure here, basically we want to extract nitrogen from your sample first, and then you convert it to ammonia. Ayan. So let's remove some of the slides, some of the inks. Ayan. Okay, remember, the whole point is to extract nitrogen from your sample by converting it to ammonia. Second, after Kjeldahl, ayan, we have Nesslerization reaction. Dito naman, basically, this is your Nestor's reagent, if you can remember. Ayan, this is potassium tetraiodomercurate. So here, okay, your ammonia will react with the Nessler's reagent. Under alkaline conditions, you would produce this, okay, which is normally a reddish-brown complex. So it absorbs strongly at 420 nanometers. So this is kind of what it looks like. So if your result is more of a yellow end color, it would mean your nitrogen content is low to moderate. Okay, yellow end color, low to moderate. But if it's around orange brown or reddish brown, it would symbolize that your nitrogen content is high. Okay, so pareho silang positive but different in concentration. Okay, so that's Nesslerization. For Berthelot, it's sometimes called the indophenol reaction. So that name was given because there is a reaction of ammonium ions here and phenol, and under strong oxidizing conditions with sodium nitroprusside, you form this dye, which is an indophenol blue in color. So ganito yung series of changes. So from this solution, it will be blue. Okay. The enzymatic method for ammonia, so lahat yung 3 chemical yon. For the enzymatic method of ammonia, we use this enzyme, glutamate dehydrogenase. So currently, this is the most common technique that we have because of its accuracy and precision. So review natin yung 2-step process. So we have here urea being converted, reacting with water in the presence of urease. You gain ammonium ion and carbonate ion. So here, magko-continue si ammonium ion with 2-oxoglutarate or alpha ketoglutarate, and then NADPH as well to form glutamate and na-reduce si NAD. Okay, so there is now a reduced nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So reduced version. This reduced version will then be consumed in the reaction, and the decrease in absorbance is the one proportional to the ammonia concentration in your sample. Again, ito po yung i-measure sa spectro, and the decrease in absorbance at 340 nanometers will be proportional to the ammonia concentration in your sample. Okay? Here are the reference ranges for ammonia. We have for adults and children in plasma and urine. So, observe normally, let's look at the conventional unit, na in adults, around 90 to 60 micrograms per deciliter. But in children, no, na around 10 days to 2 years old, medyo mataas pa yung ammonia nila. So this is quite normal na higher concentration yung ammonia in newborns, but naturally, it should decrease as they grow up. Okay? So in urine naman in adults, normally 24-hour urine yan, 140 to 1,500 micrograms of nitrogen per deciliter of urine. Okay? Next, we have the next analyte, uric acid. So, si uric acid naman is the final product of catabolism of purine. No? Purine metabolism. It is primarily formed pa rin sa liver. So, relatively, it is not soluble in plasma. So, therefore, when there is too high of a concentration, anong ginagawa niya? It deposits in your joints. Not just joints, even tissues, causing painful inflammation, which can be in a form of gout. So, ayan, you see here, ito si uric acid crystals that deposited in the toe of this patient. Now, it is usually measured, uric acid, monitor or measure siya to, number 1, confirm diagnosis and monitor gout treatment. Number 2, also to assess if meron ng problem with the kidney. So, if the uric acid deposition already infiltrated even kidney. So, baka meron ka ng uric acid nephropathy during chemotherapy treatment. To assess inherited disorders of purine metabolism. To detect kidney dysfunction or diagnosing renal calculi or your kidney stones. Sample requirement. So, pwede tayong mag-collect ng uric acid with heparinized plasma. So, heparin is good. Or just serum or urine. Take note that serum should still be removed from cells as quickly as possible. Why? Because we want to prevent dilution by intracellular contents. Again, we want to prevent dilution by intracellular contents. Now, when it comes to the diet, yes, diet can affect your uric acid concentration overall, but a recent meal usually has no significant effect naman, so fasting is unnecessary for uric acid. So, serum can be stored or refrigerated up to 3 to 5 days if you want to do another testing on them. Some interferences are as follows. So, if you intake drugs like salicylates or thiazides, it can increase or elevate your uric acid levels, while high bilirubin concentration and significant hemolysis present can result in low values. Okay. Analytical method, here we have caraway as the chemical method and uricase as the enzymatic method. We also have another one, isotope dilution mass spectrometry. Okay, starting with the caraway method, or the most common chemical method for uric acid, it is based on the principle of oxidation reduction. So one of the problems with this method is it lacks specificity. So hindi lang siya good for uric acid. Other substances can cross-react as well. So let's see. Let's look at this particular formula. Okay, so uric acid here, take note, uric acid is readily oxidized to allantoin. Okay, and then this phosphotungstic acid, okay, this phosphotungstic acid will then be reduced to, ayan, to become tungsten blue. This is your observable chromogenic product at the end of the reaction. Uric acid is oxidized to become allantoin, but this phosphotungstic acid under alkaline conditions will be reduced to become tungsten blue. Okay. Next, the enzymatic method for uric acid uses the enzyme uricase. So, ang kinaganda niya, na-resolve yung problem kanina, no, na lacking specificity. This time, it is way more specific and is now used exclusively in clinical laboratories. So, it is one of the simplest of these methods and measures the differential absorption of uric acid and allantoin at 293 nanometers. Okay, so ayan, this is what we measure later on, allantoin, uric acid in the presence of water and oxygen. With uricase as the enzyme, you produce this. Take note that when you use the uricase method, you cannot use additives such as fluoride or EDTA. Okay, so kapag uricase, you do not use EDTA or fluoride additives. So the last method here is IDMS, or isotope dilution mass spectrometry. So it's still a proposed reference method, di pa siya highly accepted. So hindi natin siya masyadong i-discuss, but siguro introduce natin looking at this photo. So ito yung serum sample. So it will first be pre-processed to remove high abundance proteins. So there will be a series of procedures here, particularly denaturation, may reduction, alkylation. So madi-disassemble na yung protein as you can see. And then tuloy-tuloy further digestion to produce small peptides. And then the sample will be subjected to a solid phase extraction, and then finally submission to an LCMS analysis, or liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. Okay, so a small introduction lang. Okay, moving on to the reference ranges for uric acid, we have here for males, females, and children using plasma. So looking at this from just browsing them, no, medyo mas mataas yung reference range for males, a little lower on the females, much lower on children. And when it comes to a 24-hour urine for adult males or females, 250 to 750 mg per dl in the urine is seen. Now, on this table lifted from your bishop shows you possible causes of hyperuricemia, or increase in uric acid, and hypouricemia, or decrease in uric acid levels. So medyo madami for increase, no? There's gout there, protein-rich diets, chronic renal disease, chemotherapy, remember? But also with decreased, medyo mas madali siyang tandaan. So dito, just having liver disease, since nafo-form si uric acid sa liver, no? Any form of liver disease would cause its decrease. Defective tubular reabsorption, or your Fanconi syndrome, and overtreatment with allopurinol. So si allopurinol here, it's primarily used for long-term management of conditions causing high uric acid. So if mataas yung uric acid mo, bibigyan ka talaga ni allopurinol. Ang problem, if there's an overdose of this, no, it will decline masyado yung uric acid mo naman, sumobra. So if you have, for example, gout, if you have kidney stones, ganyan, or meron kang complications because of chemotherapy, bibigyan ka nito ni allopurinol. Just take note not to overdose. So, third analyte na tayo, I believe. We have now ammonia. We have urea. Urea na pala. So, for urea, it is the NPN compound present in highest concentration, both in your blood and even sa urine as the major excretory product of protein metabolism. So, it is still formed in your liver and mainly excreted in urine. Remember, urea is the non-toxic form of ammonia. Okay? So its concentration is mainly determined by three factors here, depending on your protein diet, the protein content of your diet, the rate of protein catabolism, and your renal function and perfusion. So, renal perfusion here is yung blood flow that passes through a unit mass of your renal tissue within a given time. The blood flow passing through the unit mass of your renal tissue within a given time. We measure urea in order to evaluate renal function, assess hydration status, determine nitrogen balance, diagnose kung meron ka na renal disease, or verify if adequate yung dialysis. So, more of urine, no? Urine health. Kidney disease problems. Kidney disease problems or kidney health. Okay, yun yung usually minomonitor ni urea. So, looking at the urine, Looking at the urea specimen requirements, it can be measured in plasma, serum, or urine. But take note, okay, if you want to collect plasma, ammonium ions and high concentrations of sodium citrate and sodium fluoride are to be avoided. So we do not use the following anticoagulants because they can inhibit urease. And it's important na magamit si urease on certain methods. Okay? And although the protein content of the diet can influence urea, as we said here, okay, hindi naman ganun kalaki yung impact ng single protein meal, right? So fasting is also not generally required. And if you will use specimens for a later time, like if gagamit ka ng urine and hindi mo siya agad ma-analyze, you can refrigerate them for prevention ng bacterial decomposition. Okay? So again, we cannot use sodium citrate or sodium fluoride for plasma. For analytical methods, we have here the first enzymatic method. Remember urease, so it's important to remember the restrictions sa specimen collection. We also have GLD method or the glutamate dehydrogenase method. Chemical method, we have diacetyl monoxime, and still your IDMS is here. So let's look at the enzymatic method only by using urease. So urea in the presence of urease will give you your ammonium ion and carbon dioxide as well. So after this urease reaction, this ammonium can then be treated by Berthelot reaction or the Berthelot reagent, if you remember. So pwede siyang gamitan nun after this step. Second method would be to use the coupled urease plus GLD method. So this is a familiar figure. Nakita nyo na to kanina sa ammonia discussion. So urease gives you urea plus urease gives you the ammonium ion with alpha ketoglutarate or 2-oxoglutarate in the presence of GLDH. Andun si glutamate, pero si NAD, reduced NAD, ang measured using spectrophotometer at 340 nanometers. Okay? Ito pa din. Yes, the same as earlier. Okay? For the chemical method, we use DAM or diacetyl monoxime method. So this reagent okay, is actually one of the more stable and easy to obtain reagents, and it has a fast reaction time with urea. So what happens is that in the presence of heat, okay, this is heat, right? Your reagent, diacetyl monoxime, will break down into diacetyl. Okay, so diacetyl therefore can now react with urea, okay, and then they will condense in the same medium in the presence of a strong acid. They will then form the yellow diazine derivative. Okay, so this yellow colored diazine product can be stabilized by using thiosemicarbazide. Okay, stabilizer siya. And then it can be converted to this pink colored complex with a stronger absorbance in the presence of ferric chloride. Okay, so it is more stable in a pink color state. Okay. Okay. Last method is the IDMS. So if in uric acid, proposed reference method pa lang siya, for urea, it's the recognized reference method because of its high specificity. Reference ranges as follows in adults. Plasma man or serum, it's usually around 6 to 20 mg per dl, while in a 24-hour urine, 12 to 20, okay, yung standard. But take note, no, wag magpapalito. Take note, no, this BUN is not exactly synonymous to urea. Because urea is twice as much, usually twice as much as your BUN. So if you want to convert a result from BUN to urea, you multiply it to 2.14. Okay? To convert in mg per dl to, if you want to convert an mg per dl result of BUN to become urea, you multiply it to 2.14. Kunwari, your BUN is 10. Okay? And then you want to get its urea, corresponding urea concentration, simply multiply this, and you will get 21.4. Ito nun yung BUN mo, and this is your urea. Okay? Now here we have also causes of abnormal increase or decrease urea concentration. For increased concentration, we have here divided C pre-renal, renal or post-renal, and decreased concentration here sa baba. So pre-renal, usually heart failure, congestive heart failure, hemorrhage, dehydration, or high protein diet. While renal is more of kidney problems. Okay? Post-renal are those na may urinary tract obstructions. And decreased concentrations would mean either low protein intake or it's being lost through severe vomiting or diarrhea. No? So two ways it's lost. Or you have liver disease, so hindi siya na-form properly. Or because of pregnancy. Okay? Last analyte natin is creatinine. So creatinine is formed from creatine as well as creatine phosphate. So yeah, we have this figure. So it is excreted into the plasma at a very constant rate related to your muscle mass. And then plasma creatinine is inversely related to your GFR. So inverse ang relationship nila. This means that if your GFR decreases, kunyari bumababa yung kidney function mo, declining ang kidney function mo, mababa rin si glomerular filtration rate. That might mean that your plasma creatinine is actually increasing. Okay, so looking at this figure, let's look at this. Creatine, so ito, creatine is synthesized through certain substances like arginine, glycine, okay, and then transported siya to different tissues, even muscle, muscle, and then it will be converted later on to become creatine phosphate, and that will undergo spontaneous loss of phosphoric acid as creatine loses water as well. Independently, they both form creatinine. Later on, this creatinine will be excreted in the urine. Okay. Clinical application, why we would measure creatinine when we want to check on the sufficiency of kidney function, or if there's already kidney damage, to check on the severity and monitor progression of disease. So again, creatinine can come from creatine from muscle and breaking down to make creatinine, and then later on pass through urine. But if you do have kidney failure, expect blood creatinine to go up. Okay. Sample requirements. Okay, so we can also measure creatinine in plasma, serum, or urine, but we definitely have to avoid hemolyzed samples. Hemolyzed and ecteric samples are to be avoided, and plasma and fasting samples are not required. We usually don't need to fast for this test. Although we have to remember that high protein ingestion can temporarily or transiently elevate your serum concentrations, but it will not last for long. So urine, if it is collected, must be refrigerated or can be frozen, no, if we're gonna store it for longer than 4 days. So take note, if urine is your sample, okay, a 24-hour urine sample with this, kunwari, less than 0.8 grams per day of creatinine yung na-measure, it would indicate that the urine is actually incomplete. So some of the urine was not collected or wrongfully discarded because hindi po normal na ganito lang yung creatinine mo found in urine. Okay. Some analytical methods are as follows. Enzymatic ones, here, dalawa. Chemical, dalawa. We have kinetic and also IDMS. So let's look at them one by one. For the enzymatic methods, there are a series of reactions catalyzed by 4 enzymes. The first being creatinine aminohydrolase, creatine kinase, pyruvate kinase, and then lactate dehydrogenase. Okay, so with those, ano yung napoproduce per reaction? So first product is creatinine, and then it becomes creatine, and then creatine phosphate, and then ATP pyruvate, and then lastly is lactate. But of all of these, sino yung na-observe sa spektro? So ito pa din. Si reduced NAD, we measure the decrease in absorbance, which will then be proportional to the concentration of creatinine in the sample. The decrease in absorbance of this NAD, reduced NAD, is proportional to the creatinine concentration. Okay? Ang enzymatic method na to, it's not routinely used or not widely used because it requires a large sample of pre-incubation. So, yung mas nagagamit natin kumbaga sa enzymatic methods would be this one, creatinase hydrogen peroxide. So dito, there are still a series of enzymatically catalyzed reactions. We use the following enzymes: creatininase, sarcosine oxidase, peroxidase. Take note, no, the first one is creatininase, and then second is creatinase. So we have here as products, creatinine is hydrolyzed to creatine, that will be converted to sarcosine and urea, and then sarcosine oxidized to become glycine, as well as formaldehyde and hydrogen peroxide. And then this last reaction will allow the oxidation of this colorless substrate to become a colored product, or your benzoquinonamine dye, which is a red product. So this particular method has now the potential, okay, it has the potential to replace your JAF method, as it is thought to be more specific than JAF. Okay? Because wala siyang interference from acetoacetates or cephalosporins that can cause false increased values sa JAF. So, ano ba si JAF method? Review natin. Ayan. So, of the chemical methods, the most frequently used before are the JAF method that was first described way back 1886. Okay? So, dito, what happens is creatinine will react with this reagent, the picric acid, in an alkaline solution to form the Janowski complex, which is actually red-orange in color. Ang problem sa kanya, disadvantages niya nga is it's non-specific because of these positive interferences. So these large number of compounds can create pseudochromogens. So they can create this Janowski complex, not because of creatinine that is present, but because sila yung present. Okay, it can cause pseudochromogens. So these particular substances are acetoacetate, acetone, ascorbate, glucose, and pyruvate. They all give us falsely elevated results. So because of that, they tried to modify the JAF reaction multiple times. So they tried using adsorbents here. And we know that adsorbents are used to remove interferences. Okay? So they found out that they have more accurate results when they use the following. So una, Lloyd's reagent, aka sodium aluminum silicate, Fuller's earth reagent, aka aluminum magnesium silicate. So this method nga lang is still disadvantageous because of its time-consuming problem. Okay, it's time-consuming, plus it's not readily automated. Hence, hindi pa rin siya routinely used because of these two disadvantages. So, you know, I believe from your IS, how adsorption differs from absorption. So, review lang natin. Pag sinabing adsorption, the molecules simply adhere to the surface of the face, while absorption with the B is when molecules are drawn into, okay, sa loob ng bulk of the face. So, ito lang tayo, adsorption, adhering to just the surface. Okay. Next, another modification ng JAF method is the kinetic JAF reaction. So dito, it's still the same in the principle that we still use the same reagent, alkaline picrate, but this time we try to measure the rate at which there is a change in absorbance. Okay, the rate at which the reactants disappear or the products become start to form. So one advantage is that it eliminates more interference. It's very inexpensive, rapid, and easy to perform. So that sounds quite good, no? Ang dami na niyang naging improvement. Ang disadvantage lang niya is meron pa ring little bias or positive bias from alpha keto acids and cephalosporins, and it might require an automated equipment. But despite this, mas na-overpower naman yung advantages. Therefore, it is more routinely used, no? Dahil sa advantages shown here. Okay, last, for creatinine, it is also referring to IDMS as its reference method because of its high specificity. Ayan. So, shown in this table are the reference ranges for creatinine Notice na the reference ranges can vary with the assay type, okay, whether it's JAF or enzymatic, or depende sa age, okay, or gender. Okay? So, ayan. So, with males, it's around these values for JAF. Females, a little lower, and much lower with children. For urine, males also have higher expected values compared to females in 24-hour urines. Take note that creatinine concentration naturally decreases with age, no? As you enter the 5th decade of life. Naturally, bumababa sa creatinine concentration as you enter your 5th decade of life. Now here, last na i-discuss natin is si BUN creatinine ratio. So normally, the reference range for BUN crea is 10:1 to 20:1. So yung 10 corresponds to BUN and the 1 corresponds to creatinine. So this particular ratio aids in the determination of the cause of abnormal urea concentration. So it helps us understand saan yung naging problem. Is it urea, creatinine, or is it both? So looking at this, pre-renal conditions that resulted in a low BUN crea ratio, meaning your result is less than 10:1, is associated with decreased urea production, which could be seen sa low protein diet, hindi ka masyadong kumakain ng protein, kaya naturally mababa si urea mo, or if you have severe liver diseases, no? Ayan, repeated dialysis, or even acute tubular necrosis. So this is already a kidney disorder affecting your tubules. Another condition is having a high BUN crea ratio. So higher than 20:1 yung result mo, pero normal si creatinine. Meaning, ang problem lang dito is si urea. Okay? Dito si urea lang yung problem. So, ano yung mga conditions showing that? Having pre-renal azotemia, dehydration, catabolic states, gastrointestinal hemorrhage, and high protein diet. Now, the last one, you still have high ratio, greater than 20:1, but this time, abnormal na rin si creatinine. Okay, abnormal na si creatinine. So here, you either have problems with post-renal conditions involving urinary flow obstruction, like post-renal azotemia, or meron ka ng pre-renal azotemia with renal disease, or renal failure. Okay? So that is it for our discussion for NPN compounds. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, message, or please raise them during our next face-to-face class. Okay? Thank you and God bless.